My friend.
Hi, my name is Brendan, and I'd like us to pretend that I'm talking to you through a panel in a magic book. This is a show and tell video where I show you some of my favorite parts from an old video game and sort of a maligned video game called Pagan Ultima VIII. We're going to talk about the ways it's similar to Dark Souls. We're also going to talk about the ways it's similar to Thief, the Dark Project. We're going to talk about it as a kind of awkward middle amphibious creature between the old school Bard's Tale dungeon runner game and the contemporary Elder Scrolls 3D World See That Mountain You Can Go There game. And we're going to look at the parts of this that I think were sort of underappreciated in their time. So after recording and posting this whole series of journal logs about Pagan Ultima VIII, I realized that I failed to actually record the beginning of Pagan Ultima VIII, the very first things that happen in the game, which in retrospect are maybe the very strongest moments in the whole game. So I wanted to go back and make sure that I did get a nice recording of how this game begins. That is what you're seeing right at this moment. So here we are. This is the DOS box version of Pagan Ultima VIII. Back in the day, would have been DOS. Today, we have a Windows-based application that can emulate being a DOS computer from the year 1996. And that's what this is, right? We have to choose our language. The game's going to launch a nice couple of startup cinematics. We're going to hear about both the people that own the brand, that's Origin, an electronic arts company. And of course, we're going to hear about Lord British, who's the guy who used to own the company.
You have been a thorn in my side for far too long.
This is the antagonist of the previous game, the Guardian. He's a big red dude.
Will be crushed. Britannia first.
That's us, that little guy.
Earth. I shall parade you before their conquered peoples as the fallen idol of a pathetic ideal.
That's a lot of words. I love that scream. What a great
Pagan.
Also that as he's hitting the water.
Knows of the Avatar.
Look at how sad this fucking island is. Look at that miserable place. We're gonna be there for hours and hours. And here, look at the soundtrack though. This soundtrack though. We'll hear more of the soundtrack. The soundtrack is arguably the best part. I'm going to give the name B because that's my name now. It was not my name when I started recording these 2 years ago. So, okay, we awaken. We fell. Big red hand dude dumps us into the water. We awaken here. This is us with the strange yellow and red McDonald's getup. This is, well, we'll find out. He found us. He saved us. I am Devon, my strange friend. And I'm glad to see you're feeling better, he tells us. How does he know our name? He read through our logbook. See, we kept a journal. This has Ultima style dialogue trees, so it's like sort of it's very just sort of asking follow-up questions. That's most of what we'll be doing. He found my waterlogged body in the depths of the lurker's domain, and what happened before remains a mystery. Honestly, I wonder whether Devon's telling the truth about this, but it's fine. Devon's a good guy. Alongside, in fact, he's probably the actual real protagonist of Pagan Ultima VIII. And we're hearing about a pact with a guy named Lethos. Lethos is the Mountain King, you know, the famous song. Lethos is the spirit of the earth. I guess maybe the spirit of the dead would be a more accurate way to say it. Everybody, the people of this island forged covenants with these titans, including Lethos, including the Lurker. So here in our intro to the game, we can ask a lot of questions. A lot. This is to help you get context about the place where you are. You know, sometimes in the world of modern day sort of corporatist media, show don't tell is one of the big rules, which often sort of means something like spend a lot of money on mise-en-scène type stuff. They didn't have a lot of money to spend on this project. And so they're doing a lot of telling rather than showing, and that's going to be a feature of this whole damn game. We will see the necromancers. We will see Lethos. They will be shown to us. But they're also going to have quite a lot of lore to dump on us, rather in the fashion of Devon here now. So okay, he says we're welcome to stay as long as we want here with him. He has, you know, food and provisions. He's a fisherman. And, you know, there's a little bedroll here. And then he kind of says, you know, you can hang out here until you want to head to the city. And be careful in your travels, for I fear you will encounter much violence. Then he turns. I can already see a crowd gathering there on the docks. That can only mean trouble. Now this, my friend, is a breadcrumb trail. We are being invited to go the place where he's looking, the docks, the place where there is trouble. That's sort of the first thing that you're intended to do after getting your bearings, figuring out how to move and walk in this game. In the patched version of the game, that's the version I'm playing now, not the version that was released first to consumers, I believe we can look in one of these barrels and we can find this. A key ring. A key ring is one of the most valuable items in all of this forsaken island of Pagan. It used to be you had to work quite hard to get one. In this version of the game, it's sitting in a random barrel right near where you start, and you just sort of have to know that. Perhaps you should use a walkthrough. That's something we'll be exploring in this series, the value of walkthroughs as paratext. In any case, these are the docks, and this is the trouble. Toran, this man, has been accused of blasphemy against Lady Mordea, the lady in white here. He's been sentenced to death by beheading. And shitty Salkand here asks him if he has any more words, final words. And he just says, I shall die as I have lived, with honor. A man of honor would not have insulted the lady by telling the truth. But obviously this is not a particularly fair judicial process playing out here. This is a tremendously unfair judicial process. This is the sort of thing that our friend the Avatar from the previous games, a man who believes in things like justice, honor, he's a virtue boy. He believes in virtue. So it's quite shocking to be here and see that a man is about to be executed, probably for unjust reasons. He's being killed by the state for opposing them. There's his wife. She's has to watch. And we have to watch, and there's nothing we can do. And a fucking fish eats his head. That's the lurker. Down there. That's the person Devon was alluding to, having found you. Stand aside, says the fascist soldier cop. Let Lady Mordea pass. As well as all these other assholes. And hot executioner lady who we'll be meeting later in the series. This person's gonna ask me some questions. You can be like, what happened? In fact, you have to ask what happened. You can't just say bye. Not this time, anyway. I love these little movements. The little step, 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 step. It has to be tightly choreographed, scripted, using a scripting language, right? A programming language. I'll have a different name, not B, for every other snippet of video footage that you see in this journal series, but that's fine. Just pretend that I was B the whole time. That's, I guess, what I'm doing now. I'm from the beach, I tell this guard. I'm trying to return home. So the guards are gonna let me go about my business, but like... Oh... The Avatar is supposed to be able to intervene and stop stuff like this from happening, and it's quite shocking for your introduction to this world being this really horrible thing that you're totally powerless to stop. But that's kind of one of the running themes in Pagan Ultima VIII. We'll be exploring that later as well. One of my favorite game tropes is the environment that's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. That balcony up there has a chair and a trough for some reason. There's a trough up there. I don't know if Mithrin likes to drink out of a trough or bathe in the trough, but in either case, there's no door that would lead to it. We might actually be able to climb up there, but we won't try. When we step into this door, we have something that is approximately the shape of that cabin, but it a little bigger. It a little bigger. At this time in the history of this company, they're really struggling to obtain the sort of production bandwidth that was possible for like the previous game in this series, Ultima VII. They were trying to do the you can do anything type world. Like today we would know that as the Elder Scrolls or something. You know, hey, see that mountain over there? You can go there and do the same thing there that you do on every other mountain. That's what we were trying to do back in the day, but it was a bit different. The candles can turn on and off. Every object can be selected. Like, I love the weird skeuomorphic UI in this game. This is a painting of our nemesis, it would appear, the Guardian. We're in sort of a fallen world. It's a bit like Dark Souls. Kids today, that's how you can maybe understand this world. It's a fallen utopia sort of place. But like, okay, I push I and my backpack opens, right? And the backpack's got a bag in it. The bag's got money in it. And you want to collect bags because bags allow you to hold things. I can take this potion, put it in a bag, just in it goes. There's my potions in a bag. I drag it around, it can stay on the screen with me. This is anybody who ever played Ultima Online, or a lot of MMOs would basically steal from this tradition for a while. Today we'd be used to these having gridded item slots. Like, it would be mortifying to a gamer today. Imagine the fucking terror and fear if ever like this scroll kind of got in front of my my waypoint stone, you know, and now I can't use this thing to fast travel without remembering that I can like move the scroll. Like, that's the kind of thing that a contemporary gamer would sort of lose their mind about. But this game, it's all a little bit dicier, you know? You just have keys. Eventually I have to find a key ring somewhere so that I can put all my keys on a key ring. This game is transitioning out of that era of games where key rings made sense, the 1980s computer role-playing game. And we're caught in the absolute most awkward of transitions between, like, you know, Ultima 4 D&D game on an old Apple II computer where you're like a dwarf guy who does 20 damage. That's like the previous species, and we're moving towards, of course, the action sort of role-playing thing, like Diablo, or even the Elder Scrolls, or Dragon's Dogma, or Dark Souls. This game is like awkwardly in between. This company's kind of more in distress and ailing, and they're sort of on the way out, but you can see a lot of details. They're sort of reaching for this you could do anything, premium, immersive world feeling. Like, this room is very strange, right? If we think about it logically, why do you need like 3 tables to hold all of your shaving equipment? But that's just like a design sort of... This is what an Ultima Online house would look like, and it's simply because this world is, of course, not like our world. It's not made out of quantum shit. It's made out of like grid tiles. And you can only really comfortably store your razor and your towel and your mirror and your other towel, your cleaner towel, and there's your water over there, and here's probably like a brush, you know. They don't have like our reality to like put many objects close to one another. In Ultima Online, you would just put your objects out on a table, weirdly spaced, and we can see that kind of environment paradigm here. Like, this bedroom is almost impossibly huge. Imagine how, like, 5 people could do yoga in this bedroom. And that's just one of the interesting things about the spatial expansion that happens in virtual worlds of the humans we depict relative to what you're actually, like, doing in here. It kind of always is this way.
You should hear the pleas for help, Avatar.
There's like a weird BDSM vibe between the Avatar and the Guardian. Like, you should hear their pleas for help. It's really dirty. They really need help, Avatar. You gotta get back here, man. You gotta stop me. Why won't somebody stop me? Like, there's a lot of interesting and strange stuff happening here in the world of Pagan. It will not let me run off. Well, that's good. So these are considered cave walls. I love to design houses in Ultima Online, and you would do that using pretty much the same paradigms. You'd choose your walls, you'd put them in different configurations. It was great. Make a lot of fun stuff. I like that you appear in the mirror. When you get like within a certain tile range of it, it's a pretty cheap effect, but it makes the world feel more immersive. I like the intentionality of drawing only 2 states for the mirror. I think gamers would often praise a fully reflective mirror as the ostensible goal, right? Realism or simulation or whatever. It's fine to do like cool ray traced reflection stuff, I like that stuff, but there's an intentionality to choosing just 2 frames, mirror with no one in it, mirror with shadow in it, and the shadow looks a bit like my character. There's one detail here in Mithrin's house that we always need to pay close attention to, because it's really strange and just a great bit of game history, and it's this thing. You see how it changes form, and when you click on it, it says like either sphere, or cube, or tetrahedron. Of course, the sphere, the cube, and the tetrahedron were the logo of Electronic Arts, and that was a company that sort of purchased and then subsequently dismantled Origin Systems. A sort of storied small shop game development firm in the 80s. They made all the Ultima games. High-profile boss guy, Richard Garriott, goes to space and stuff like that. Seems like a nice guy. But they weren't having a great time here at this time in history. And if you click on this thing, you get this funny, I have not the strength nor the wisdom to master such power. And then he says, but one day I shall. And that's like kind of untrue. I don't know that Richard Garriott ever did get the last word against those corporate assholes at EA. But this reflects a sort of hopeful spirit towards that. And of course it's veiled. The Avatar's ostensibly talking about whatever this magical item is, but this thing's useless. Just like EA, it doesn't do anything. It's like, it's only meant to be whipped around, kinda, you know, made fun of, talked shit about. That's what you do with one of these magical sphere, cube, tetrahedron things. We're retracing our steps from Mithrin's house to the city of Tenebrae, because foolishly I forgot to activate the waypoint that exists in the castle. So there's no way to get back except to hoof it. And we've arrived at the part of this game that I suppose was divisive back in the old gamer days of its original release. We can call it like Super Avatar Brothers. That's one of the ways to describe it. There's platforming. That's kind of interesting. You gotta double click, like both mouse buttons. Left and right. I do actually right then left. That's what I do. It's really interesting. And, ooh, lurker. Isn't that neat? Check that shit out. That's pretty difficult to do. I'm pretty good at it at this point. That was something that turned people off about this. They were like, why is there platforming in this game? Today, when we have games like Dark Souls, there's jumping, there's running, or Monster Hunter, anything, right? We have 3D games, and that stuff is normal. We didn't have 3D games yet, but we're so close. They were so close to having 3D games. I actually find that the platforming has a bizarre elegance to it. Look at, I can like choose the exact destination of my jump. I can do a short one. I can go pretty far. It's quite awkward. You can see how slow it is turning and walking and wanting to do the entire 180. The avatar is sort of a bumbling character in this game. But there's nothing else like it. And learning to get good at it is, you know... Today we have games like QWOP, or we have games like Dark Souls, where you're kinda not very nimble. Having to do the like hold circle, run and release circle jump thing and fall into a pit and die. We're much more open to that concept being cool today. In the context of this game's release, it was shocking. It's like Bob Dylan going electric or some bullshit thing like that, you know? The game is trying to become what its later descendants would achieve, and a lot of the people from before, the people who'd grown up with Ultima, were sort of disgusted or something. But I was a child when I played this, and a lot of this awkward crap was just cool as hell to me. Do you want to talk about secret doors? The Ultima series has a proud tradition of secret doors. In Ultima 4, you could find specially differently bricked walls, like the bricks looked a little different. You walk through the wall instead of colliding with it. And on the other side of that, you know, there's like a mouse who has a conversation with you. It's kind of funny. That from our isometric, like God's eye view of the avatar, it is extremely, extremely apparent that there's a secret room. Just, you know, there's no door leading to it. There is, of course, this rather conspicuous switch mounted to the wall. So we can double click that, like we can double click anything. And that's a pretty cool animation, isn't it? Of course, it's just a tween. But damn, that works. The funny part about this particular house that we're robbing is that it seems to be like a necromancer's house. And necromancy is frowned upon within the limits of Tenebrae. But everybody's kind of fucking around behind the scenes, you know? So we get to this room and, you know, there's conspicuously another secret door to be opened by this other conspicuous looking switch. I mean, these secret doors are about as hidden as the ones in Ultima 4. They're intended to be found very quickly, and the question becomes, why put this here? The play pattern here in East Tenebrae is that you, the avatar, are forced to skulk around, debasing yourself, supposedly, by breaking and entering into each of these rich people's houses, finding the key to their shit, putting it on your key ring over here. The key ring you also have to steal. The avatar's not supposed to steal. He's like a virtues guy. He's all about doing the right thing. And here in the world of Pagan, he's being forced to do the wrong thing. And that's supposed to be, like, interesting to us. This is kind of giving you a pretty strong hint. Like, maybe you should use this scroll of trap detection. And, ooh, there's a little sparkle. That shows you that you should probably use the scroll of trap destruction, but you probably shouldn't stand too close. Because that can kill you, of course. In the world of Pagan, and specifically in the city of Tenebrae, I'm trying to just get my stats meter to come up, but it doesn't want to right now. Everybody is paranoid here, and they keep all their things in locked chests, and they put traps on the chest. I think that's supposed to be sort of a commentary on our cities and our society. Maybe. The design of this building is kind of fantastical and interesting. This person seems to have an upper balcony that's extremely fucked up. I guess this is where they put their old furniture. There's just a human corpse here. The corpse has a potion that I believe makes you invisible. Pagan Ultima VIII is sort of the story of a... I guess you'd call it like an open world tragedy. Features like invisibility were concepted and designed, but there was never going to be a way to deploy enough labor or to enough force onto this programming problem. The computers were just too narrow in a lot of ways. It was never going to have like 7 different uses for invisibility. Going from this thing has 2 or 3 uses to it's like Zelda Breath of the Wild and there's this whole radically connected thing. That's a cost of like an order of magnitude. And at the time of this game, this company was sort of being screwed by their publisher, Electronic Arts. And so they did not have the resources. They couldn't really pay that cost. And we get this open world tragedy where there are many things like invisibility. It's very cool that the Avatar does that. They probably would have liked to program something where... But the combat's not thick enough to really make invisibility an important mechanic. There's no important fight where it's you use that potion because this particular boss has poor eyesight. That's the kind of stuff you would dream about to really add like MSG to that open world soup. The publisher wasn't really letting them use MSG. They were on like a health food diet or something. An incorrect health food diet, right? Because MSG is just tasty. It's fine. I got a big container of it in the other room. The evil laugh. The Guardian's laughing at us because he's like, "Ha! You've debased yourself, Avatar. You used to be about private property, but now you're just like taking stuff." But I don't know. It's fun to take stuff. I think this game acknowledges that. Everybody acknowledges that. It's one of the strongest parts. This game, in many ways, is like pre-Thief. It's really kind of neat to be taking this kind of voyeuristic presence, you know, within another person's home. I can just eat this cheese, and look what the Avatar's gonna say. Because cheese is delicious. He's not gonna say, "This is unvirtuous. Somebody worked hard for that cheese." Who cares, Avatar? Get in through the back door, get the key to their shit, take their shit, and leave. This is the virtue system of Pagan Ultima VIII. It's fun to check under every item, looking for, potentially, the key to their shit. It's the sort of thing where once in the game it's hidden under something, and that makes you check under everything. Open world tragedy in terms of the reading materials. It's kind of straight, like, in Thief the Dark Project, I would maybe be getting information about what kind of person this is by what books they keep. And I'm sure that the team dreamt of doing that, but that's an order of magnitude more complicated than they could afford. So we get these sorts of... It's, you know, why does this person have a love poem about 2 other persons who literally, like, live in this town? That's like that's 2 of the 9 people who live here. And the reading material on your shelf, it seems like kind of like their private shit. It's not what anybody would have wanted. It's an attempt to spread something that's too thin over too large an area. Potions were one of the things they had, and so you sort of see them often on display. I wonder, how can I get in there? I checked around for about 30 minutes, and turns out, there is no real key for this door, and nobody really knows what's up with this house. This one can be climbed into, and you can get some potions. But it cannot be fully robbed. Perhaps they never finished, you know, building the whole thing. This is one of the strongest designed encounters in Pagan Ultima VIII. Outside, we have one character, clearly a person who does not live in the house over here. How's about helping out a poor cripple, they say. If I were to click no, the avatar would shout, "Peasant!" in a very sort of impudent way. Instead, don't eat the yellow shrooms with spots of green. See, we're cool with the local folk now. This game is a little bit like L.A. Noire, in that if you pick the don't help people responses, the avatar will performatively, like, if you say no, he's not going to be polite. No, I'm sorry, I don't have any obsidian on me. He's gonna, like, really make you look like an asshole for choosing that option. And I appreciate that about Ultima 8. I like this person, their positioning by this, like, really gorgeous looking fence post. Some sort of, dragon or something holding up these lamps. The skull motifs over everything are, like, quite fashy, which is appropriate for the current regime that's in power here. This house that we're gonna enter here makes no sense. Firstly, the door would be locked if this were my first time approaching it. So we have to teach, this encounter teaches us how to play breaking and entering the video game. You gotta jump to get up onto the roof. Oh look, there's a person here. That's okay. This is that person's play area. And up here, we have these billiard balls, which we can sort of whip around, and we can even throw one into the others. This would probably be fun for the child, it's also fun for us. Does the child have anything to say to us now that we're breaking into their home? That's good, well... I mean, I definitely am breaking into her home. We can walk down these stairs, and we get to this interesting sort of lake house place. This place has apparently been built on wooden piles driven into some kind of stone, or I don't know how they constructed that. It's pretty impressive. Maybe they used magic. But this place is very open concept. There's a boat down there that I'm not sure how we would ever access. And there's no doors to prevent the cold ocean air from sort of streaming in over these balconies, to presumably make this whole area extremely unpleasant to inhabit at night. There ought to be a fireplace, probably. Maybe it would go with this bellows. But we don't notice anything like that. It's tempting to emphasize this game's divergence from reality and then play that up to make whatever point you want to make. Like the game, you could be trying to say it's really bad, you could be trying to say it's really weird. But what's interesting to think about for me is like what an amazingly distinct design vernacular they've come up with using this grid-based walls, half walls, floor tiles, windows kind of system. I played a game called Ultima Online, and in Ultima Online I would build houses that were a lot like this. I mean, of course in these virtual worlds there isn't really cold wind, so you don't really need to insulate your house. If you search through the whole house, you'll usually find the key to people's shit. And that's what you're trying to get when you're breaking and entering into a house like this. There was a bag half concealed behind this wall. One of these. And in the bag was a key. And the key opens this door, and then the two doors in those bedrooms. And that was actually a dynamic that persisted into Ultima Online, especially in the old days. You could build player houses, and they had keys in the old days that helped you get into them. And if somebody murdered you, they could take the key and go into your house and take all your things. Exactly what you were doing here in Ultima VIII, oddly enough. This is the Master-at-Arms Darian's house, and it's very important to rob Darian's house, because there's some pretty good shit in here, as it turns out. The first thing you do is always go downstairs, because that's where people keep their best shit. In this little desk here, we can find 4 obsidian coins. That's not bad. But here we can see a whole bunch of room that we presume is accessed by one of these secret wall switches that everybody seems to use. So of course we can just go upstairs and flip that. This chest is locked. This chest is also trapped. We'll just go ahead and not get ourselves killed. But we still have to unlock it. Now, one of my favorite things in this area is that they make use of the game's item system to pretty much ruin the rest of my experience with Pagan Ultima VIII. Because check this out. We go into the armoire, wardrobe, and it's like it looks like a bunch of clothes. Except if we move them around a bit, it's like, wait a minute. There's like some things under there. There's $15 under there, which is not very much. But it's enough to make me check under every single item of clothing and every single wardrobe for like the whole rest of the game, right? Even though they only really do it in like a couple of places. Over here we have one of the all-important bags. Bags are like bottles in The Legend of Zelda. Except, you know, in this game they don't telegraph its importance at all. So we do steal that bag. And if we check under this clock, let's just like whip it. Look, there's a key. And that's why I check under every single clock everywhere else in the rest of the game. Even though I'm not sure they ever use that trick again. Of course we can use the key to open the chest, and the chest gives us leggings. Remember that we arrived here like butt naked, and nobody in Pagan is going to help us with that stuff. So of course we're just going to steal all of their useful stuff. I mean, fuck the Master of Arms it anyway. He kind of supports like a fascist regime here in Pagan. Now we're outside of Salkin's house, who we're definitely gonna rob because Salkin is a rich asshole. I really like these gargoyles. You don't really see them anywhere else.
Soon, I shall be able to call Britannia mine. It seems, Avatar, that you are missed here. Why, I believe I hear Lord British crying out for you now.
Lord British is sort of hopelessly inept. This is this rich guy's house. You can see that there's fancy thrones, Here's like some journal stuff. I think that's just kind of a generic book. If you look in here, though, you can find a non-generic book, Enemies of Tenebrae, a list of all the citizens of Tenebrae suspected to be involved in, you know, anti-state dealings. And it's a list of like literally every character in the game, basically, of course. Because they're kind of fascists. That's like the thing about them. If we were to check under every object in this room, we would eventually find that there's a key under this vase. And if we take this key here to this back area, look at how large this person's house is. Even by the design vernacular of these late Ultima games, where everybody's house is strangely enormous, so that you can, you know, see and touch everything. Look at this place. This place has a pantry back here. Always say when you steal a rich guy's cheese. Am I right? This feast hall over here is obscene. Are there even this many characters in the entire game? This table seats 8? But Salkin doesn't have any friends, it's just ostentatious. There's gargoyle things on all the walls. Look at this water feature out front. I love water features. I loved making them in Ultima Online. My houses had entirely too much of that stuff and were frankly pretty ridiculous and over the top with it. Daytide. Salkin's at work. If we were to check under this towel after searching the rest of the room, whip, we'd find another key, and we'll actually need both keys. It's pretty satisfying to kind of play Thief the Dark Project and search through all of these heaps of items. One of the problems, though, is because of the inconsistency of implementation, some houses, you just can't unlock the doors. The way Ultima 8 lets us know that we can search under everything and find interesting stuff in this house is that there is a plaque, and the plaque reads, "Do not enter," which means, please enter. This door is locked, but we found one key. You can see there's a fancy steel barricade. Of course, the solution to any fancy steel barricade is to just find the little switch to flip. So we do that, and we go over here. This locked chest we can unlock with the other key. It also happens to be trapped. So if we use one of our trap destruction scrolls, which you can find in all the houses around town, this is like combining all of the looting skills, the breaking and entering skills that the Avatar has been forced to debase himself by acquiring. Look what we find in here. Here's a bag. This bag just has like 100 obsidian in it. Presumably he was going to use this to, like, you know, bribe somebody. That's the kind of person Salkind is. So we can just, like, grab the 300 obsidian and make ourselves very rich. I don't even know if we need the money for anything. I think we have to buy, like, various items later, you know. If you're doing a speed run, this is probably where you'd go to quickly get lots of money. Scroll of Healing could be useful. Let's take the Scroll of Restoration, how about? The other stuff, maybe we need one Scroll of Invisibility, I don't know. So of course after you've knocked off this rich guy's house like this, you're pretty much set. You can keep stealing for fun, and I certainly intend to. But that's going to give you the basis for getting the crap that you're going to need in this game. It's another sort of tragedy of the open world thing. They probably intended for money to be a much more sophisticated thing, with a lot more merchants dealing a lot more kinds of items. But instead we at least get this interesting experience of like hidden object gaming through this asshole's large mansion, feeling the kind of difference in space between his house and, let's say, Aramina's house here, which is locked because we can't meet her here until like Bloodwatch later in the evening. So here's like a novel thing, at least in the lineage of the Ultima games, right? The bad thing happening that you can't really stop. Guard cop person here is interrogating this peasant, as the game labels them. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of crappy. Away, they don't want to talk to me. I can't talk to either of them. This shit's just kind of happening. If I, you know, save this video game real quick.
Nice to send his best.
Then I can, let's just say, it's unjust. It's justice. This is what fighting tends to be like. I'm not very well equipped in Ultima 8 yet. But we'll do our best to stop this injustice. Okay, so... well, that's pretty... I wasn't expecting this to happen. The dead guard appears to be interrogating this peasant still. Well, just chug a healing potion, throw that at their corpse, and move on, I suppose. Here's a question for you, my friend. What is this? What is this? This is a building, like the ruined walls of a wooden house or shed or something. And there's a dead tree. A tree had already grown and died. And then there's some mushrooms, some fungi, mycelia kind of covering everything. But we know because of the design vernacular this game uses that there's really no... This amount of space is not big enough to use by anyone. Even poor people have like a bedroom that would be like 14 times the area of this. So what they're doing here is trying to depict... This is the bad part of town. This is West Tenebrae. West Tenebrae is where, you know, the police are detaining people. I guess there's this idea about like urban decay. We see like not only have the houses gotten decayed, but they've gotten like smaller because it actually didn't need a large area in order to communicate the idea of decay. But isn't that like a weird and interesting sort of axis on which to analyze like the way we tell stories about this? It's rather conspicuously obvious that the decay is more important than, you know, whatever community might have been there, for example. The idea of the decay is more salacious, I might say. Look at this place. This place up here is like the house on Niebolt Street. There's just a lot of ruin that you can sort of be a spectator to. At some point, again, there couldn't really have ever been a top floor of that size that was usable to anyone. But we've shrunk it the same way you might, like, shrink, you know, characters you consider to be a little less significant or something. But what an amazing portrait of, like, squalor. Look at this debris. Just debris everywhere. The staircase pattern is kind of, like, really cool. Oh yeah, we can get up into this place. Like, isn't that neat? Now we're at the top of this... Ooh! Avatar doesn't want to fall that far. Okay, buddy, that's fine. What a strange architectural feature. It's the kind of thing you could build in UO, stacking two staircases on top of one another. Campfire. This person's actually warmer than whoever lives in that lake house. There's a bag back there, but we can't get past this wall. You might think, oh, and you know, on the other side of Tenebrae, the east side of Tenebrae is the rich side. We're in the west side, the poor side. I might have said that incorrectly before. In the other side, you would hit a switch on a wall. Like, maybe that wall would be a great candidate for just, and then you walk through. But I think that is not the case. And the reason is because the designer of this house had a different idea. You know, look at this. Because we're in, like, some kind of ruined part of town, I guess these people don't have the switches or anything. So instead there's just, like, an awkward hole in the floor. And we can, like, oof, just fall in. And that's a pretty good haul in here. Owing, I guess, to the difficulty of the encounter. It's not clear, like, you know, if that person over there could have found 67 coins just in the other room next to them, I think they would have really valued that, but I guess we're just gonna steal it because, you know, that person's not really capable of coming in here and collecting it. They're an NPC. Well, that zombie. And that's how you rob, well, ghosts? Let's talk about walls. Tenebrae has giant, thick, fat... Look at these city walls. These things could repel a large army. They're just extremely big walls. And of course we know that people didn't physically have to make these walls. Some designers drew like a repeating wall texture and then a level design person arranged them in this big sort of like a figure 8 or something. Tenebrae is like there's the west side and the east side and then a castle in the middle and these giant fat walls surrounding the outside, inviting us perhaps, to one, like, we probably believe they were created through magical means, given how depopulated this island is. They never had enough laborers. This isn't really a story about labor. They were sort of put here by gods, right? And there are human inheritors to the godlike power, and that's kind of what this game and this world are like. One of the interesting consequences of them doing this very symmetrical west and east shape is the apportionment of space inside the walls is absolutely nothing like, a real medieval town center. Like in real human world, like the planet that we live on, people did sometimes make walls like this, but it had a really practical defensive purpose, and then you wouldn't want to build, you wouldn't waste bricks building a wall and then leaving this huge grass lawn over here, with nothing in it and no one using it. Like, that would be a waste of human labor and a waste of bricks and a waste of, like, the king's gold coins and all of this shit. Like, medieval town centers are filled to bursting. The space inside of them is, like, 100% spoken for because the walls are valuable and making them longer costs a lot. When you're making a video game, it doesn't cost a lot. And that leaves the designers of this game to sort of invent a space layout for the city of Tenebrae that doesn't make any real-world human sense. I mean, we're here in West Tenebrae. This is like the poor part of town. So over here, like the way that the designers use the Ultima VIII design vernacular to express the poor part of town is kind of fascinating. There's parts of it, like this. This appears to be a gladiatorial arena. You can see that there's a dying sort of... A thorax is essentially like a cow. So one way they say this is the poor part of town is like, oh, I guess people show up to spectate blood sport. That's the kind of thing that would happen in the poor part of town. Is that true in reality? No, not at all. Bloodsport happens in the built town center, right? Where I live, in the city Vancouver, the stadium is built right in the middle of it. I mean, of course, sometimes American cities will look for some gray field area with nothing on it and they'll put a stadium there. But certainly in the context of any medieval town center that has walls and stuff, I mean, we've talked about this, the kind of like impossibly small dimensioned ruined shack that no U8 character could ever have used. Even the poorest U8 character has a bigger shack than this. So this was just built to look ruined. That's kind of interesting. And then if you follow, you know, this wooden or this dirt path, there's a zombie, you get to our other expression of the poor part of town, which has a literal ghost that's actually quite dangerous. This is like, you know, the house on Niebolt Street. You go in here, it's basically haunted. And a huge percentage of the overall buildable surface area within the city walls of Tenebrae are dedicated to just this, like, weird, ruined ghost house. And that's something that is, like, pretty extremely non-realistic. Anytime, like, land that is inside city walls would be valuable, and that means you wouldn't permit people who weren't wealthy to live there. You would simply evict them, and then wealthy people would put, like, a mansion there, right? So we're sort of seeing, you know, the laws of, like, zoning and land use bylaws and stuff are obviously not really a thing within the design vernacular of Ultima VIII, Ultima Online. It kind of actually was a thing in Ultima Online, but I don't have time to talk about that now. One really interesting and kind of sad detail, like if we talk to this guy is like middle-class tradesman guy, and he basically just talks about how he's a smith and he knows everybody, and you know, he does an honest day's work for an honest day's wages, and he feels perfectly okay with that. He's kind of like the embodiment of working class, not even work, this is like he's the embodiment of like baby boomerdom or something. His greatest satisfaction is a job well done, and that is something that money cannot buy. You have enough, eh? We can really get into this. Like, this guy just loves telling you about how content he is with his lot in life. And clearly the writers are making they're trying to express the idea that different classes of people live in this town. Pagan is trying to address social class almost as a critique against the previous Ultima games, which were rather white and liberal in that, like, yes, there is a beggar that you can give coins to in order to increase your compassion stat, but, like, you know, but Britannia, there's no history of, like, Britannia's labor movement. You know what I'm saying? They have, like, various types of industrialized work, but they didn't really have industrialism. That was sort of deleted in Britannia's rush towards the end of history. You know, it's always it was in some idyllic state that got ruined by some new thing, like the Shadow Lords, or a cult like the Guardian's weird death cult from Ultima VII. The Guardian is the same villain in this game. Ultima VII, there's a weird death cult. Ultima VIII, the leader of the death cult exiles you to a world of his own creation. And in his world, this blacksmith guy, you know, has no fucking clue about the labor movement whatsoever. And I guess that does check out, right? This guy is, like, pretty callous, I would say, to the plight of, say, the peasant just down the road who's being assaulted by a guard. You know, things are getting worse. This guy's such a baby boomer, right? Like, back in the day, all our streetlights worked, and now they don't work anymore. And like, it's like the whole world's gone amok, but maybe he should have been trying to prevent Lady Mordea from gaining a sort of iron stranglehold over the people here and using it to exploit them, right? He doesn't really talk about that. He's not that type of character. He doesn't have that type of class consciousness. Like, this guy's all about, the other week I saw a cut purse. Can you believe that? A cut purse attacked a lady, and of course, he, like, smacks the cut purse. It's all very, like, 1950s brawny type stuff, like you'd read in a comic book. What's a cut purse? Yeah, the Avatar knows what a cut purse is. They had brigands in Britannia. Don't worry about that. But the Avatar tends to... One of his favorite routines is the Socratic method. It makes the writing of these dialogue trees very easy, right? He just pretends to be a total doofus. And he kind of just asks a lot of follow-up questions. This guy is sort of... Yeah, I mean... He's on the side of Lady Mordea. That's specifically depicting this character as sort of evil. That's something that gives me a sense of respect for Ultima VIII. I think Ultima VIII has some nasty words to say about those comfortable baby boomers who are worried about, you know, rioters destroying their own community. And this kind of person, you know, he's talking about, it's all about individuals. Like, it's good that I was here to stop this cut purse, because the problem was that, like, it wasn't that a person was deprived of food and had to steal, right? The problem is that somebody chose to do wrong by committing theft. And the solution was that a good guy with a sword showed up to prevent the theft. And you thrashed him, the Avatar asks? And sure. For some reason, the sorcerer, Baron, who will fucking murder us because he's the cops if we do anything wrong, for some reason he didn't help with his cut purse. So, like... This guy's bragging about how he got to beat the shit out of somebody. He's kind of like a neighborhood watch type guy, you know what I mean? And that's like a pretty disrespectable type of human. He's rather proud of himself for supporting, you know, the Mordea regime. It's odd being ruled by a lady. Lady Mordea, I think, is like a very Margaret Thatcher-like presence. And this character is a rather, like, GB, keep England British type guy. He's, like, literally walking around brandishing a weapon, right? Which isn't actually... Characters in this game only do that if they're, like, guards, executioners, tyrants. This was the first part of Ultima VIII, Tenebrae, Mithrin's house. There's, like, some wild stuff sort of down the way, like necromancy, talking to dead bodies, a lot of Dark Soul shit in that part particularly. There's the God of Fire who's on the game box, Pyros, big fire horn guy. There's a whole wind spirit thing that's one of the most... It's like Anor Londo with the archers, basically. We'll take a look at it if you'd like to join me. Out here in the sprawl, where the year is always 0, and history is paused somewhere in the